All right. So, hi everyone, and welcome again to another session of our 10 day series on different UiPath products. Till now, we have had sessions on many different products, right? From Comps Mining Studio, apps, DU Action Center. Yesterday, we had on Automation Cloud, robots, and Orchestrator, and many different things. Today, there's another interesting and a very exciting session, which was also a part of one of the sessions that we had during the DevCon. And not only that we had that topic, but we have the same speaker over here as well. So if you missed DevCon or you missed watching the recording, here is again Satish Prasad. He is one of the UiPath MVPs, and I've known him for a long time, and he has expertise on many different things. So not only this, but probably after this session, if you want to reach out to him for any different topics of UiPath, please feel free to reach out to him. And as you can see, our topic today is UiPath integration services, and we are going to see how you can build your own custom connectors using integration service. So without taking any more time from the speaker, over to you, Satish.
Yeah, thanks, Bart. Thanks for giving the quick introduction. So, you know, uh, as you rightly said that here we are going to talk about the UiPath integration services, and mostly we'll be talking about, what are the updates that has happened. Because initially when the product was launched, there are very limited features and people are afraid of using this tool and capability. But as we have, improved a lot in the last couple of, years and releases, there are a lot of things that has been added. So I'll be covering, a couple of new features, and then we'll talk about how we should be able to build the custom connector. So those who don't know me or those who are interacting, first time with me. So I'm Satish. I am total having, this slide is old. So I am having, a more than 12 years of experience and worked in various domains and technology. Currently working as a solution architect at one of the leading, software development company in the Delhi NCR region. And apart from that, I do have a passion of blogging, and rpabotsworld.com is a one of blog, which is basically a very old blog in a, RPA technology, started way back in year 2016. And from there, I continue used to write a lot many detailed and in-depth article on this, blog. So feel free to reach out, feel free to visit that blog if you need some more depth and technical article about the RPA technologies. So quickly jumping to the topic or agenda that we're going to discuss today, right? So we'll briefly discuss about the integration services, right? Although our main focus should be how to build a custom connector, but I'll cover what integration service is all about, how integration services work, when you should use the integration services, and what are the benefits if you use the integration services rather than using the direct API calls, right? And then we'll talk about how to build a custom connector, and then we'll briefly touch base upon what is the trigger-based automation or based on the integration services. Although I have not written about the licensing here, but I'll be also covering about how the license consumption happen over the integration services. So let's get quickly started. And as all of we are aware, integration service is not a new term, right? And when we talk about the integration, we simply means that we want to interconnect the system, right? And let's take an example that there is an organization, and that organization having more than 100 products, say Jira, Teams, Slack, SAP Cloud, workforce automation tools, then workforce management tools, ITIL tools like ServiceNow, and lot many other tools of the cloud and everything. And when you want to build a solution for an organization like that, then what you need to do? In those cases, you should have ready to connect integration between your automation platform and the tools that your organization is using. Otherwise, what will happen is if something goes updated into those tools, you need to build and update your activities again and again, right? So the goal for integration services are two things. One is we can talk to different system, and different system can talk to each other not only in a one direction but in a bi-directional flow. That means information from UiPath can be sent to the third party system, and information from third party system can be consumed into the UiPath. So bi-directional flow of information happens in an integration service. That's the point number one. Other thing that we focus in integration service is the time to market, right? We can do all of these things that integration services does with the help of API, right? There is no, if you say that we can't, why can't we do this using the API? You can always do that using the API. It's not that you cannot do that, right? But why we are using integration services? The one point among them is time to market. Because if you go and build the custom activity for each API call, passing hell lot of parameters, then authentication mechanism, building the payload, understanding their get, post, all those methods, which takes, lot many time. So with this, I also want to convey here is, the integrations service product is, rapidly growing. And last year, when we had this integration service, or when this, the presentation was presented, that time we have approx 100 connectors, and today we have more than 100 connectors. So see the difference, that last year we have 50 plus connectors, and now we have more than 100 connectors. That means the speed and uses of this product is quite growing into the community and the market as well, right? So we have lot many connectors now. I'll showcase you how, what connector is, what connectors means, and all those kind of things. The other thing that I wanted to discuss, which is the very, fundamental of the integration services, trigger-based automation. So far, whatever the automation we do is a attended automation or unattended automation, which is scheduled based, right? You want to, run an automation and so date, or so and so time, or so and so, or the other way of doing it, if there is a queue item added into the queue, then trigger the automation. So these are the few things that we do. What about if something happens into a different system? Let's take example that I want to run automation in UiPath when there is a ticket created in a service now, or I want to run my automation when there is an email arrived on so and so email address with the say so and so subject from so and so, the person. Then there comes the concept of triggers, and triggers can help you to provide the uniform mechanism so that you can subscribe to those third party external events, because your UiPath platform with the help of integration services is listening to, right? So whenever there is a, event happen in a third party, you should be able to automate the your processes. So I'll showcase you, and this is a very, wonderful feature, because uh, the traditional way of doing things is a polling, right? So we keep polling, we keep looking at the website if something has happened, or email has come or not, or the ticket has been created or not. But gone are those days. So we are not, going to design a process in a way where we keep looking for an email to arrive, or file to come, or the web page to refresh. So the better way of doing is subscribing to the event. So in last slide, I talked about three things that you need to take care, or you need to note down. One is connectors, another one is connection, and third one is your trigger. These are the core component of UiPath integration services. So what connectors are, what connections is, and what triggers are, I'll quickly, go to the UiPath cloud platform, and I'll showcase you from the portal itself rather than showcasing from the PPT. So how you can access the integration services? So first thing that you can access the integration services with the help of the menu, which is here, and you can click on the integration services. So we'll come to this page. Okay. And by default, you will come on the connectors page. So whatever the connectors that is listed here are still growing, and you have seen lot many these new are recently been added, which are not previously. And that's what I talked about, because last time when I delivered the, the session on this topic, there was only 50 odd connectors, and now we have more than 100. And you name it, any, popular application that is out in the market, you'll find that, be it a Salesforce, PayPal, or, Pinecone, or QuickBook, or OpenAPI, or Microsoft Azure, or Azure AWS, or lot many, like Microsoft Dynamics CRMs. So we have, connectors for almost all the popular application which are working as a, on a cloud platform, can be connected with the help of connectors. So connectors is nothing but a bundle programming interface through which you should be able to communicate with the third party system to the UiPath platform. So that is connectors. Now, to use this connector, we need to provide some authentication mechanism, obviously, right? And we should be also able to control the behavior of that authentication mechanism, or the person who is trying to access those information, right? Say, for example, I want to utilize a automation in which automation, I want user or the robot user to give only access to read the incident data, but you should not be able to read any other data which is available on a service now, right? That means all those provisioning of authentication, delegation, and providing the grants for which resources can be done with the help of connection tab. So you understand connectors? Connectors is nothing but bundled API programming interface to connect and communicate with the third party system with the UiPath platform. You build connection so that you can communicate with that third party. with the help of granular authorization and authentication given for the each resources and delegation. And then the third tab is trigger. That what I talked about in a previous slide. This is really, really important because it helps you to automate lot many scenarios where we are not able to automate so far in the past with the help of traditional way of looking things, right? So I have taken example of I want to run my automation when there is a ticket created in a service now. So how you should be able to do that? So for that, what you need to do, you need to use the connector which is of service now. Then you need to build a connection which is will be utilizing the ServiceNow connection. And then in triggers, what you can do, you can utilize that connector, say for example, ServiceNow, or service, right? And then when you connect it, and then on the basis of that, you should be able to tell here when there is a connection, you should be able to also select and subscribe the event. So I'll showcase you that in a few minutes. But for the sake of understanding, understand that you should be able to subscribe the event that happens on a third party system. And on the basis of that event and putting some filter criteria here, you should be able to run your automation. So that's the basic funda of the trigger. And then let's come back to the connector page. For that, I'll quickly go back to my PPT. And as I showcased you that we have connectors, connection and triggers. And one thing that is really, really need to note here is currently the polling that happens on a UiPath platform for subscribing the event happens every 5 minutes at a default. You should be able to change that at what frequency that it should read the information from the third party platform. But by default, it is configured as a 5 minute. Because many times people ask, even though I have built a, automatically trigger on the basis of the event received, why my automation is not running? So you have to check that default setting, which is 5 minutes in the platform. So now the next thing is, I said that you should be able to build a trigger based automation, right? So do I need to do some changes in my framework to run that kind of automation? Yes. So if you want to build automation which works on the basis of integration services, you need to define 4 parameters in your main program. And the parameter name should be UiPath event connector, UiPath event, UiPath event object type, and UiPath event object ID. And this should be of type string, and the direction would be in, because we need to receive the information from third party system, so that once we receive this information from the third party system, we should be able to utilize that inside our process workflow. So let's take an example that if we are connecting to the ServiceNow, so the UiPath event connector would be ServiceNow, UiPath event would be incident creation, event object type would be incident, and event object ID would be unique identifier to identify that object into the ServiceNow. So it could be incident ID or a sys ID through which you should be able to identify that information. So that is basically about the integration services. So far, so good. You understand what is connection, what is connector, and what is trigger. If any question, feel free to ask, because after that, we'll go to how we should be able to build a custom connector and how it works. Any question here? Anyone?
Hey, Satish.
Yeah, Aditya.
So one question. In one of the process, I was using one connection that I created in our orchestrator. I didn't need these arguments to be defined or to be created in my workflow. What we did was like we just created a trigger and we selected the process that this is the process that needs to be triggered on such and such conditions. Is it really mandatory that we need to create all these?
Yes, you need to. Reason being, you are subscribing to the event, right? So you are just creating that a trigger point. Email is received, your automation triggered. But what needs to be done with the information of that email, right? You want to, reply to that email, or you want to, delete that email or move to other folder. So how your process would know that which email we are talking about? So you need to pass that object details and information inside your workflow, right?
Okay.
And that information will come with the help of those 4 parameters.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Satish.
All right. All right. So now the question comes, UiPath has given so many connectors, hell lot of 100 plus connectors. Why we need to build a custom connector, right? If there is already a connector, why I need to? The question, the ask here is, we are not asking you to build a connector for everything or the popular softwares you have, but there are some internal software or there are some internal application, right? And they have well-defined documentation available, or they support, the API construct, right? REST API construct. So with the help of REST API construct, you should be able to build a connector in a minutes. You don't need to write an activity around those API because UiPath will do for you. And that's where these custom connectors are really, really important. Other thing, or the other reason why I should define a custom connector, right? Let's take example that in your organization, there is an internal software called, workforce management, right? And that workforce management has some API that is exposed to certain departments, and you want to put abstraction on top of it that only certain set of information can be, passed to the my workflow. Other information has to be, restricted with for PII reason, or for, the authorization reason, or other information cannot be given to any, So there are two ways of doing it. First way of doing it, you control those behavior at the API level, and that's the programming change that has to happen at the API level, right? But if you want to utilize that API without that, the construct or the, what you call it, restriction to be applied, you can do while using the custom connectors. There will define that what information we can pass and what all information we can read. I'll showcase you in the next, few minutes. So don't worry about it. So the custom connector is really, really useful because it provides you, first is the best time to market. Another thing is that the abstraction layer on top of information that your process can use can be defined here and controlled. So that's really, really important, especially for the banking environment and wherever we have, some PII data and all those kinds of. So I'll quickly showcase you how you should be able to build a custom connector. And for building a custom connector, I'll take example or a famous example of pet store. Okay, so we have a pet store Swagger API. So usually what will happen whenever you want to build a custom connector, the first thing that you need to know or first thing that you need to have is a Swagger documentation. If that is available, well and good. Other way of doing it, you have a Postman JSON file, because in many companies, Postman is being used for testing the APIs, and Postman collections are mostly available in the organization. So using the Postman collection file or using the Swagger documentation URL, you should be able to build custom connector pretty fast. Or if you don't have these two, you can still do, but that will take more time. It's not that you can't do that, right? So for sake of simplicity, what I'll do, I'll use this, which is a Swagger documentation link here. Okay, and I'll just hit in front of you because this passes the information here just to test it, that how this API looks like. So I'll copy this URL. I'll come to the integration services page. Now what I need to do to build a custom connector? So all you need to do is hit on custom connector builder. Okay. So when you can see that the custom connector that I have built during the DevCon, after that I didn't use it, but I'll do in front of you again. So the thing that you need to do is click on create a custom connector. Now you have two options here, right? I talked about the Swagger documentation and the Postman collection, or an export file, JSON export file, usually given by the testers of the API. So if you have those kind of information available, you can utilize that pretty fast. Or if you don't have those information, you can start from blank and then you have to define everything. So for sake of simplicity, or to showcase how it actually works, we'll be using the first approach, which is starting from the API definition. So we have an API definition. So we can upload that API definition in form of Swagger documentation and Postman collection, or you can directly fetch it from the API documentation link, which is this one in our case. We'll simply post that. All right. And we click on continue. So what it will do in a background is not many things. It will read all the methods that is available and all the resources that is available for that API here. You can see that, right? And by default, it has come the name. So I'll say it demo. Okay. And you can select your icon. If you do not select your icon, it will sound like this. So, you can do all those customization about it. But one thing that you need to note here is that although you have all the informations or all the endpoints available here, what you can do is based on your use case in your organization, you would be able to selectively select and deselect the resources that you want to utilize in your automation, right? So say, for example, I want only the get information. I do not want to build the activities for the delete or post, right? So you can select those accordingly here, or you can select those at the basis of the resource level as well. So I am not going to change here, but if you want to change, you can change it by selecting, deselecting here. And then all you need to do is give a name and click on create. So it will create a connector for you, but things are not done yet because we have not defined that what information or what parameter we need to pass to that custom connector, right? Or what information we want to receive from each of those resources, and those customization are possible. And that's where the beauty of the custom connectors are, because we can abstract the information, or we can only pass or only showcase the information that we wanted to showcase and utilize into the automation, right? So the first thing that you need to know is what all kinds of authentication is being supported by the custom connector, right? So as of now, the connectors builder for integration services allow, to use the REST API only. There are some restrictions with the, other kind of WSDL and other APIs. You can still do something, but there are some restrictions. But it supports most of the authentication type that is available in the market. So if your API having these kind of authentication mechanism, which is basically covering all of what is available in the market, you should be able to build a custom connector. So whether it is Auth 2.0 with Auth code, or it is with the client credential, or it is a basic or API key or PAT or no authentication. So you should be able to. How this will change or how this will impact the custom connector is how the authentication has to be provided for connection. So I'll quickly go back to the UI where I was defining the authentication for my connector. So if you look at here, you have these drop downs. What is being listed on the PPT page? It's the same thing that is being listed here. So for this, purpose of demo, I'll be using the API key that will be required for authentication of this connector. And I know that this has provided a special key for testing, right? So with the help of this, you should be able to do it, an API key, and you can pass this value here for testing purpose. Okay, and then you can publish it here directly, but I want to do something more, right? So now look at these resources. Okay, so these are the list activities, these are the get activities, these are the insert activities, these are upsert, and these are update and delete activities. So by default, everything is there. And now what I want to do is, say for example, I want to read the user information, right? So what should be the parameter? You should be able to change the parameter behavior, right? You should be also able to customize the response field, what kind of response it will come, right? And how you should be able to do? You should be able to do with the help of rows and options. So it will generate from the payload. Okay. So if there are, anything which you need to, display as a response field, you should be able to define it here, right? Getting confused? Let me take a step back and then explain you again. So when we use the API directly, right, what we get? We get a JSON, right? In most of the cases, we get a JSON and we deserialize it and then we convert into data table and all those kind of things, right? Most of the cases in the web API. But here we have an opportunity to define and customize the output of the API responses as per our need of the automation. If it has 200 fields in a response, I do not care about it because I only need the name and status of that particular output. So what I'll do, I'll simply go and delete those fields because I don't need it. Or I want that to be into a different type. So I should be able to change the, types and descriptions here. Those all things can be done. So these things you can try. But I wanted to explain you here is all kinds of abstractions and delegations and customization of response output can be done with the help of the activities here. And all these activity that is being listed here, right? They will become part of activity. The moment we publish, all of these will become activity. So that means just by configuring the authentication mechanism, your reusable component for this API is ready. And in 5 minutes, you should be able to utilize the activities of the custom connector in your UiPath Studio to get the information from that API. Right? Pretty easy. So all you need to do is then click on publish button. And if you want to give the documentation link, that's okay. Otherwise, click on publish. Any question here, anything that you are not able to understand, or anything you want, which is not been answered by me? Anyone?
I think you are teaching so well that no one has any questions, Satish.
All right. So you can see that I have created a connector which is called demo event. You can see, this has no connection as of now. I'll connect it so that the connection will be available. And then you can see all these activities are ready to be used, right? And as I have created, this is the extra field that has been given to me. But for most of the connectors, you will not see this particular tab because those are published by UiPath. So you'll not have option of admin in those. Okay.
So Satish, one quick question over here. The activities that got generated, right? So is there any limitation on the number of activities that can get generated? Like
No.
10, 20, something like that?
No. These are pretty generic activities. So these are not actually not activities. These are encapsulation, right? So you can see these are CRUD methods, right? So basically, when we deal with any application, what we do, we add, insert, update, delete, upsert. Right? This is nothing but the same thing. And inside all of these activities, you should be able to pass the resource name or a table name for sake of simplicity to get the information. So I'll just wait for a couple of more minutes. I'll showcase you how this can be used inside a studio so that you understand how this custom connector can be used in a studio. That will help you.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So this is done, right? Now we have this custom connector ready. Now, to use this custom connector in a studio, what all things we need to do, right? So the first thing that you need to do is you need to install this dependency, which is called UiPath connector builder.integration services.activities. So once that is ready, what you can do then, I delete this because I was testing before, coming to this session that whether it is working or not, because many times UiPath keeps changing something and that comes as a surprise. So then you need to use connector builder scope, right? And what you need to do is click on configure. So when you click on configure, what it will do, all the connectors that you have on where you have access to, that means inside the folder or the folder which is shared with you, right? Because many times, the people ask question, why that connection is not visible to me. So the by default that connectors will come inside your workspace. Or if you want that to be shared, you should be also able to publish that into a different folder as well, right? But for sake of simplicity, you understand is if you have access to the connectors and you are part of that folder, you should be able to see all those connectors listed, right? So this is the connector that I have created today in front of you a couple of minutes back. So I selected that connector. Next thing that we need to do is create a
Hi,
connection to this connector. Okay.
Nutan this side. Hello.
Yeah, Nutan.
Yeah. Satish, when we are creating the connections like already
Mhm.
existing connection, at that time also we need to install this dependency connector builder.
Uh, yes. So anytime, no, this is only used for custom connectors. This is not to be used for other activities. Say for example, you want to use the integration services of Microsoft, right? So Microsoft has their own activity, and they have taken care of those all steps in their activity itself.
Okay, thank you.
So here what we are trying to do, because we have built the custom connector, and that custom connector we have published on the orchestrator, right? And we have not created any custom activity around it. So what we are going to do here is, with the help of custom connector builder integration services activities, we'll be able to interact with the data through help of integration services. That's what our intent is. So the next thing that we need to do is select a connection. So as of now, you can see we don't have any connection, right? So what we'll do, we'll create or click create a new connection. So the moment you click on create a new connection, this page will come. And here, because I have given that API key as a default, that's the reason it has filled. Otherwise, what you can do, you can basically select the API key or give the API key which is being provided by your admin team, right? So I have selected this one. And here you can see that by default, all the account in this folder will have access to this. So this you can control, because for some of the connector, there is a way through which you can control which all resources you can get access and all those things. But as of now, we are dealing with only with the basic set of feature. So by default, it will go into the my workspace folder, and I'll connect. So it is connected now. Very simple. So now when you go here now and go on the connections tab, you will see that there is a connection that has been created just now, right? So we have a connections now. And with the help of this connection, now what I'll be able to do, you can see the connection here. You can be able to see the connection here. Click on a save. So this is how your connection has been configured to this. Now what you need to do, you need to read some information, or you need to utilize all those activities. So basically, with the help of this connector builder scope, you should be able to get the data, list the data, update the data, and delete the data. That's what we usually do with the API, right? So let's take example that I want to get the record. So I'll drop this. And here we'll again do this very simple step. It's called this one. And then you have, this is the connection, which is inside my folder. And then I have to select the object. This is the pet object. Okay. And then you can pass the pet ID, which is basically a ID of the, it is of type string. So let's take example that I want to get information of pet whose ID is 5. And then you should be able to get information of the pet. And then you just simply print a log message saying that output from connector. Yes, this is the and the one thing that we need to, I don't know is whether that there is a really information that is available with the ID is 5, so I can test it here. How I can test that is basically I'll come here, pass the screen, authorize, and then I could close, and that I'm utilizing basically this pet by pet ID. So whatever the ID it is, I'll try it out. Pass 5 to check that whether there is a data or not. So I tried, response code is this, ID is 5. No. Yes, so for 5, there is a pet which is called doggy, and there is no photo URL and everything. So if I pass that, the same information, it will come here. So let's run it. So that's pretty much about, how the connection builder can be done and how you can utilize it. Any question now?
You guys do feel free to ask any questions, right? Because
Feel free
I
to
think,
ask how you,
yeah,
if you have any idea around it or anything, you tried out, you are not able to understand. Otherwise,
and
I'll ask
yeah.
question.
And also, if you are trying to implement this in your organization, or many times it happens, right, that you are doing a pilot or a POC for a new feature in your organization, but don't have all the details with respect to that. So if someone is doing that in your organization for this particular feature, then please feel free to ask anything about that as well. Or if you have any feedback, that's also welcome. Yeah.
Regarding that API key, do we get a trial key from UiPath, because we don't have such a scenario in our project? So for understanding our trial or test purpose, can we get that API key for free from UiPath?
Uh, when you say API key, here what we have done, we have used a open source, project which is Pit Store, and this is basically a project built by a open source party, so that we can play around the API, how API integration works, and all those kind of things. This Pit Store has nothing to do with UiPath. This is the third party external organization open. Okay.
Okay, and API key is of this pet store and not from anything UiPath
Yeah.
feature or something, right? Okay,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So basically, what will happen is, in your organization, there will be a team or a team of developer who will be basically who have built the API, or there is a team who is supporting those API. So they'll grant you the access and they'll provide the API keys and all of these. All you need to know is the documentation or URL of that API. Give that
Okay.
URL link. It will create automatic activities for you. Configure those, basically fields, what all fields or what all information you want to read from that connection builder, and then your task is done.
Yeah. Satish, we have one question from Parvati. Can you list some more open API examples so that we can try to build something? Any other?
There are many actually. There is a marketplace called Rapid API actually. So if you go to that marketplace, you'll get a lot many APIs which are free, and you can test all of these. These all are free APIs. So when I
Yeah.
ask question in my interview, I usually visit this and then give a API asking to solve something. Okay.
Okay. So now
So,
you guys can check where Satish works, and if you are applying over there, this is the place where you can learn from.
so a lot of APIs are available free. So it's not that you need to
Yep.
worry about. Lot
I
of
have shared
users.
the link of that. Yes.
Yeah. Some of them are paid too. It's not that all are free, but this is really a good tool for you to explore. And yeah, Asif, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just had, probably that's a basic question. Um, to use the services, I should have somewhere coming from the API related data. It's not like have a website with me. That will not work. I should have the API interface available with me somewhere, either through
Yes,
Swagger or the custom built APIs which are already existing by the
that's correct.
developers.
Yeah. So integration service is not a magic. Okay. It's not
Yep.
a magic. All what we are doing is we are abstracting some information to be shared with the developer, right? So it's kind of you are providing a black box where you are passing some argument, and that black box inside contains the API. But UiPath does that magic for you. You don't need to write a code for it. Otherwise, for building a API call, we might have struggled to convert that JSON into a J object and then J array, and then
Yes,
figuring out
yes.
whether it is an object of J array or array of J object, right? And then we try to go a for loop and then doing lot many experiments. But here the
Right.
things are pretty simple,
Yeah,
right?
those were struggles with the HTTP request activities.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, to start with, if I like, I am using some other website, not ServiceNow or anything. There are a custom built websites which we work on.
Yeah,
So I need to have their APIs ready with me to start using
correct.
integration
Yeah.
services.
Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, you need to have their Postman collection, right?
Or the Swagger collection I should be having with
Swagger
them.
collection, or if not, you can start from the blank, but then you have to write everything. It will be time consuming. It's not that you cannot do it. Let's take example that I want to create from blank. Okay. So in that case, nothing will come. You need to define everything. What is the
Okay.
base URL? What is the resources? Everything that you need to do. See, nothing here.
Yes. So the website I am working, should the developer should have given me the API details, and then I
Yeah.
can come with it. So my
Yes.
the struggles which I had with the HTTP requests will be reduced, but I
Yeah.
should still
Not
be
the
having the API.
no, API you need to have. Struggles will be reduced, and other thing that we are forgetting is time to market, right? So let's take
Yes.
example that the company has given you the API and they have asked you to create a reusable activity. How much time you will take to build a reusable around it, right? And then you have to understand the model of each API endpoint. What kind of data you need to pass into, what kind of data it will give, and all those kind of things. And this is helping you because you can, basically, if I go back to my connector again, okay, let's edit it. Sorry, demo event. And here you can see that, you have all these response fields and everything here, right?
Yes. Yes. Got it. Got
So
it.
you should be able to customize it, right? So many times we have seen that we are dealing with an API and we want to only read a status from that API, but it is giving me a response of 10, 100 lines of response, right? Why I need that? Say, for example, I want to pass a ID and I want to get only the name of that pet. So all I am worried about is these two resource parameters, right? I can delete all of these, right? I don't need those, right?
Okay. Okay.
So the activity that will be, I'll be passing this and it will be returning the name. So parameter here is status and then accordingly it will respond. So you should be able to configure the parameters and responses.
Okay. Now I got it. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Satish. Yeah.
And one more thing that is still in a preview. So I do not, basically discuss about this
Hmm.
because many times when I showcase something, it doesn't work live, right? So what is happening is, instead of building that here, you can also build it here, right? So here the display name is status, and you can see that what you can do is you build a connection, a page will come, and then I'll paste a special key here, and the connection will come, and then status value to here you should be able to do everything. You can define how it works and input you have defined. So you have to define the output like this. See, it's pretty easy, more easy than right selecting deselecting. So similarly, it will come. So here what we did, input would be status, output would be these three fields, right? Pretty easy. My activity is done.
Right, and I think it worked in live as well, Satish.
It
So
it is working. It most of the time it doesn't work when we publish. So let me hit publish to see that it is working or not.
let's try your luck today.
It is working.
Okay, awesome.
So nobody asked me question about that whether do we need a license for it or how the UiPath will charge integration services. Do I need to buy another license and those kind of things? Anyone have idea about how the licensing for integration services work?
Now everyone has a question on that since you highlighted it.
Anyone? How this
Guys, try
license?
try to be active so that what information
Yeah, feel
Satish
free.
is
Yeah,
sharing.
feel free to ask anything. Be informal, right? We are. It's not that we are. We all are here just to learn something and to share
Yeah.
something with everyone, right?
So okay. So Ashwini Kumar has shared something in chat that when she was asking about license key or something, she was trying to ask the same, like whether do you need any specific licensing for this?
All right. So all you need to do is you go to admin, Usually you don't have access to it. I have access to it. So if you go to the licenses and then consumable, and here you can see this, right? So how it happens is, if you look at here, pretty simple. I'm not telling anything. UiPath is telling how it is granted, right? Granted as part of user and robot SKU, more details on license and pricing. So for every license that you buy, you get a 5K integration API call each month, and every month it will get reset. You got it? So you don't need to buy any license for it. If you have a developer license, 5K. If you have unattended license, 5K plus 5K. If you have one more testing license, 5K plus 5K plus 5K. So it keeps on increasing. And this will be shared across the tenant. Okay. And this can be shared across the folders as well. So you can control who can use what as well. Right. And I have not used it.
One question.
Please.
Yeah, one question on that. So you said if we have developer license, so we'll get 5K for the month, right? So those can only be utilized for development purposes, or I can use that even for production.
Yep.
Like if I have
Those
upgraded my
will be
development
used.
within like 200.
No, those will be used for the development one, because when you are using it from a studio, at that time only that can be consumed from there. It's basically for the development purpose.
And similarly, if we have a testing license, so that can only be used for testing, and then production will be separate for
testing
like
one
unattended
can be
or
combined. Robot license can be combined. Actually, see here, granted as a part of user and robot SKU. So user one will be used for a development, and robot SKU will be used for robot execution. Whether you, for UiPath, everything is a production, right? It is us who have created a logical differentiation that it is a dev tenant or it is a production tenant, right? Because integration services works only in cloud, not on premise. So if it is on a cloud, everything is production, right?
Okay. And if you have also answered it is not available on premise and it is only available on cloud. So that is also a point to note.
Yeah. All right. So I think we are good then, and I'll quickly go to PPT. I'll see if something has been missed. This I already covered. There are basically few links and the article. I think Parth will take care of that. It will be shared, so you'll get this PPT and everything.
Yeah, and the recording will be available at the same place within 24 hours. It might take some time, but yeah, we'll be uploading the recording of this session if any have been missed of previous sessions, that also will be uploaded. But yeah, it was wonderful session, Satish. I think it was pretty helpful. Maybe we'll see some people trying it in their organizations and see some LinkedIn post on it about the session as well. So guys, do share your feedback about the session on LinkedIn. Feel free to tag myself, Satish, Aditya. You can tag us. You can tag the UiPath community page as well. And do share your learnings from the sessions. Thank you everyone for joining it. Thank you, Satish.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.